Okay, so this is my first attempt at a Google Hangout. Well, actually, it's my second. Well, actually, it's my third attempt because the other two failed miserably on a technical level within about 15 seconds of starting them. So hopefully this one will go okay. I'm new to this. The idea is I'm hoping to make the format a little bit more interactive. There is some app here, an app that tells me I can receive questions, but I honestly don't know if that works or how it works. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep looking on the YouTube page where this is going live. And I'm going to keep checking on the Spartan Life Coach Facebook page and see if anybody posts any questions up there. Apart from my speaker failing and me accidentally playing a feedback of my own voice into my own ears on the last go, my Hotmail crashed, which is annoying because I had some questions from people via email that I was going to answer. It's great, isn't it? So the theme of this first cyber meetup Google Hangout thing is going to be complex PTSD and covert narcissism. The email that I was going to read was from a gentleman who was asking the question if I thought that complex PTSD could be developed later than early childhood, and that perhaps it wasn't always coming from the parent. He was asking me, does it always come from the parents? Because in my case, I don't think it does. He said in his case, he felt that it was because he is gay and the trouble that he got growing up as a young gay man in a heterosexual society was the thing that actually gave him the complex PTSD. And then he found himself involved in relationships with covert narcissists. So there's a lot of questions there, a lot of good ones, right? So the first thing that I should say is complex PTSD is a new concept to me. I certainly can't pretend to be an expert in this. I'm very interested in it. I think it's the answer that a lot of us have been looking for a long time. I think it represents a revolutionary moment in psychotherapy, the concept of complex PTSD, and it says a lot that many people don't know about it, and that it's not officially recognized as yet. If you haven't yet, you should get the book by Pete Walker, Complex PTSD from Surviving to Thriving. It's a landmark, game-changing book for people who were raised in adverse childhood environments and who suffer from people pleaser syndrome, codependency, that type of thing. If you want to understand why, any psychological problem you can think of is dealt with in the model that Pete Walker presents of complex PTSD and the 4 F's for the trauma style responses. I won't get into that here. I want to talk today particularly about complex PTSD and covert narcissism. So let's deal with this gentleman who's asking me the question from the point of view of him. He is gay. He wants to know if, at age 10, 11, 12, 13, when he started to realize, find his own sexuality and notice that it was out of whack with what we're told is the correct method, because we are free, you are free to do as we tell you. And if your sexuality is out of whack with what is considered to be the correct method, also known as normal, what the consequences of that can be to you, and whether that could cause complex PTSD. So can a young adult develop complex PTSD? Absolutely. It isn't always down to the parents. It isn't always down to the childhood environment. It often is. You could even go so far as to say it usually is. If you look at the model of what complex PTSD represents, it's highly likely that you're talking about childhood abuse and a relationship with parents or parental style authority figures who hold the most power in terms of patterning the unconscious of the child's mind at that moment. So absolutely, you can develop it at any age. The example that is often given in complex PTSD land, if you're interested in the research that goes on, is that of political prisoners. If you're put in an environment where you're infantilized, entrapped and cannot escape, and you're put back in a state of vulnerability and helplessness where you're dependent, you're forced to be a dependent upon the goodwill, kindness, or sort of care of others, like being a prisoner, then you can develop complex PTSD. There are certain things that are important to the development of complex PTSD. One of them is not that you must be a child. The fact that you're a child is an incidental factor in creating complex PTSD. You must be a dependent. You must not be able to escape, and you must feel or experience subjectively as though your very survival depends on the behavior, on the decisions of the person who is effectively looking after you, or if you were trapped and shoved in a dungeon, at least the gatekeeper, the tower keeper, the guy who jangles the keys that lock the door. His moods, her moods, you know, what she wants, what she desires will become a large focus of your life when your life is shrunk down to this environment, which can have frequently has a cult-like quality to it. So there is a body of research out there done by a lot of it that I'm aware of is American rather than European, as it happens, on complex PTSD as a result of being in cults. Cults do cause a lot of complex PTSD because frequently one of the other elements that is required for complex PTSD to occur is that you have a place where you cannot escape, where your survival depends on the sort of relationship with a authority figure, and that the rules change and that there are conflicting rules, that the injunctions in which you live under in that environment are not congruent. So you're forced into a game that you don't consent to, where you never really even have the rules explained to you. And even when you start to figure out what the rules of the game are, the fucking rules change on you. So this is why it's so stressful. Before I ever heard of complex PTSD or narcissistic abuse, I fell in love with the concept of the catch-22, or as Gregory Bateson, the anthropologist, described it, his double-bind theory of schizophrenia. You know, mental health practitioners on the Spartan Life Coach channel have pointed out to me it's actually not a great description of schizophrenia, but it is a fantastic description of how to drive somebody crazy and how to break their self-image and cause lasting damage to who they are and how they operate in the world. And it's the same thing, you know, it's the idea, the example I always refer back to for the double bind theory that Gregory Bateson proposes is the 1984 torture scenario that takes place between the character Winston and the representative of, as Zizek would put it, the big other, how should I put it? In the film, it was played by John Hurt, was the victim, Winston, and Richard Burton had this fantastic, terrifying performance as the stern, fatherly, older brotherly, paternal authority figure who didn't want to hurt Winston, but he had to because it was his duty, because Winston's mind had become corrupted with filthy, dissident political ideas. The double bind scene in particular, if you want to watch it, which it's kind of triggering because it's pretty graphic, would be triggering for some people, is when Winston is being tortured and the character played by Richard Burton says, "How many fingers am I holding up, Winston?" And Winston says, 3. "No, Winston." And he tortures him. Either I think he racks him or he electrocutes him. He says, "How many fingers am I holding up now, Winston?" He says, 3. "No, Winston, it's not 3. And they go through this whole dialogue, this whole process in the book 1984 of breaking down Winston's ego. And I don't mean ego in the normal way in which we describe it in modern Western parlance. I mean the Freudian concept of the ego, that which allows the vulnerable inner individual to deal with and cooperate with and negotiate with reality becomes broken because the rules of the game keep changing. And when you fuck up, you are beaten, tortured, starved, possibly executed. There has to be this fear hanging over everything of some terrible, awful destruction. And George Orwell which what's so brilliant about the book, is the terrible, awful destruction wasn't more torture, and it wasn't being executed. Being executed was almost a relief from the ministry of love, double speak. Okay, double speak in the ministry of love, which is actually the place, the dungeons where political prisoners are tortured. All of this is very important if you want to understand complex PTSD and covert narcissistic abuse. Because the abuser, the torturer, says, I am not torturing you because I hate you. I am re-educating you because I love you, and the party loves you, and this is the ministry of love, and your thoughts, comrade, must be corrected from their filthy, Western, decadent capitalist corruptions. So that's the environment that needs to take place. You need to be stuck, and you need to have one injunction that goes against the other injunction. I think the third factor to create a true Batesonian, the double bind is that you can never say that it doesn't make sense. Winston does in the book. He says, this doesn't make sense. And the Richard Burton character says, yes, I know, it doesn't make sense. It's great, it doesn't make sense. And he says, well, what is 4 plus, I think he says, what is 5 plus 3? You know, and your brain will give you an answer. The mathematical truth of the answer is 8. But I need you to see that 5 plus 3 is 9. And I don't want you to lie. It's so cruel, this book. It's such a cruel description of, as a description of cruelty, it's perfect. It's excellent. He says, Winston, I know you're an intelligent, rational man, and you want this pain to stop. You want the imprisonment to stop. And if I tell you that 5 plus 3 is 9, of course you're an intelligent individual. You will forego your principles to stop the pain, and you will tell me that yes, 5 plus 3 is 9, even though in your heart and in your soul you know it is 8. But that's not good enough for the party. That's not good enough for me. I need you to say that 5 plus 3 is 9 and believe it in your heart and in your soul. Recently I released a video about brainwashing. If you go to the Wikipedia page, for what it's worth, on brainwashing, there's a reference there that says that actually the concept of brainwashing is a play on words from Chinese that originally meant heart washing, which I think is lovely. The idea that your heart, your soul is dirty and needs to be cleaned. It sounds quite benign. You know, the idea that I'm going to clean your heart for you, I'm going to clean your soul for you because you have been corrupted by this mental software virus that would have caused you to speak out against the Communist Party or the Capitalist Party or whatever the fuck party it is. It doesn't matter. It's all about control. It's all about controlling the individual and breaking them to the point where 5 plus 3 equals 9. In the story, Winston goes into a state of learned helplessness. He is broken down to this, he's totally infantilized to this state where he says, well, you tell me what it is. How many fingers are you holding up? Whatever you say, whatever you tell me, that's what it is. And he's like, well, can you make 3 fingers be 2? And he kind of squints and he goes, yes, it does look a little bit like 2. And he tortures him again. He says, don't patronize me, Winston. Don't fucking lie to me, kid. You know, it's next level gangsterism. It's horrendous, but as a description of how this process works, it's perfect. So can complex PTSD be created in those kinds of environments? Yes. What about an environment where your very primal basic desires, your sexual needs, as you're coming up into adolescence, your hormones are at full tilt, all that testosterone is flowing through you, and that you find that your needs and what you're thinking of go against what the party, what the big other, the big brother, the big other has told you they must be the correct method. What's the correct method? Well, the correct method is to be a good, clean Christian boy and to find a good, clean Christian girl to settle down with and to pay your taxes and buy a house and, you know, conform and be productive and give your life to the big other, the big idea of what life is. People who fall outside of that, who go against tribal doctrine, traditionally have been punished very harshly. The worst punishments will be laid to those who go against the group doctrine and the needs of the tribe. The worst tortures will be inflicted upon those people. So to answer the question, could complex PTSD be developed in adolescence? It could be developed at any point in your life where you're trapped, where the two injunctions oppose each other, and where you are punished really for a game that you don't fully understand. And even when you learn the rules change, or you're just required to be pushed into a box that you simply don't fit into. Like if you are gay in an extremely judgmental, homophobic, rigidly sexualized society, because we are free. Because we are free, we have to conform. I'm sorry, I got something stuck on my tongue. To what society tells us the correct method for sexuality must be. So can it be developed at that stage? Yes, it can. Could the complex PTSD have been caused by being raised by perfectly decent parents, but just by being gay in a straight society that will not tolerate homosexuality or indeed any deviation from a previously described norm? I did an interview recently with somebody who wanted me to talk about mental illness and what my perception about mental illness was. And I answered that all the mental illness descriptions that we can find are a model of reality. They're social constructs. They're not real. In some places in the world, they're voted for. They're not blood tested. They don't draw spinal fluid or cranial fluid and go, aha, I see we have clear markers here for schizophrenia and borderline personality disorder. You can't do that. It's a social construct. It's an idea. And what is implicit in this sort of ideology is the implicit doctrine is there is normal, and your psychiatrist is normal. Your psychotherapist, your coach is sane and normal, and they are following the correct method, and it is you that has deviated, which is a myth. It's a convenient tribal myth. It's a societal sort of injunction that you don't have to submit to. You don't have to consent to it, non serviam. So there was another level to that question, which I'll get to in a second, but I want to check about this Q&A app. I can't see any questions popping up. Let me have a little look on the Spartan Life Coach channel. Sorry. 1,000 apologies. Thanks, brother. You've given me a sense of redemption. I'm not crazy after all. We're all a little crazy. Oh dear, here's a question. Can you reject your cultural identity, as we are seeing now in the media with Rachel Dolezal? That's an interesting question. Okay. Right, I'll answer that in a moment. So to finish this question, the gentleman who messaged me, what he said is that he found himself in relationships with men who were abusive in a covertly narcissistic way. Well, how does that relate to the complex PTSD that sort of the way in which he developed complex PTSD growing up? Well, the narcissistic abuse in that environment where a person's sexuality is denied, shamed, ridiculed, humiliated, that they are meant to experience massive guilt for, that is covert narcissistic abuse. But it's not come from a person, it's come from a group, it's come from a society, it's come from social norms. Every time every single, as a 12, 13, 14, 15-year-old growing up, every single piece of media or instruction or conversation that said being gay means you are weak, ineffective, silly, every time you see a gay man behaving in a stereotypically gay way, that's the new. It's not like gay culture is all free and happy and joyous. There's rigidity within, there's gay cultural norms as well. And there's not to say that gay society won't enforce its cultural norms. It will. I know this. I myself happen to be heterosexual at this point in my experience as a human being, but I have had over the years a lot of gay friends, and I've seen that. I've seen that rigidity. I've seen that self-disciplining within the gay community, and I see negative stereotypes enforced not just by heterosexuals on gay people, but by gays on other gays. It manifests differently amongst men and differently amongst women, yet there it is. So every time you experience that as the implicit covert messages, because you want what you want, you are weak, silly, ineffective, you can't be manly, like you can't be decisive, you can't be assertive, you can't be a hero, you can't be well, think of the films, you can't be Rambo, you can't. Like it's outside of the cultural norms. That's what you're being told. Of course you can. Of course you can do that. You could do anything that anybody else can do, but we never see that. We're never shown that. We're never told that story. I can't remember whether the last time I saw a Hollywood blockbuster where the lead was gay. You know, I'm not even going to go there into the implicit racism and sexism that is still absolutely rampant in 2015 Hollywood. Go and watch. I watched Jurassic World the other night. I think I walked out with a sore forehead from rolling my eyes so hard. The most cliched, hack, dreadfully written, appallingly developed. I'm sorry, they weren't developed. Characters and lines and just drivel. It's just absolute fucking shocking drivel. That is just, I don't even know why they're doing it. I don't know why. It's like they're deliberately farting in people's faces. I was watching the film and all I could think about was the human centipede, which I've never seen, but I understand what the concept of the film is. It's about people being force-fed other human beings' poop. And I'm just thinking, was the human centipede just a big inside joke in Hollywood as a metaphor for what's actually happening there, where people are just being fed other people's poop, and every film, every story is just a bad photocopy of a bad photocopy of a bad photocopy, you know, running on into eternity. Anyway, what the hell am I talking about? I said I wouldn't talk about films. Don't get me on films. I'll drivel on. So why would this gentleman end up with a covert narcissist? Because the abuse that he experienced that created the complex PTSD in society, in culture, was largely covert. Yes, there are people around who'll say, you know, you fucking faggot, queer, puff, blah, 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 blah. You know, I myself had my life changed when I was assaulted when I was 21. I was going to join the army as an officer. And on the day before my final test, that would have got me into Sandhurst, I went out with some friends, a mixed group of girls and boys, and we went out in Chester. And Chester can be rough. Everybody thinks Chester is a lovely historic town, but we'd been in loads of fights there. I had my eardrum burst in a fight there like 2 months before. And we said, well, where are we going to go? Well, we'll go to a place, I don't know if it still exists. It's on Love Street in Chester, and it's called Love Street. And it's a gay bar that was open late on a Sunday night. Played great music, had cheap drinks. People went in there and danced, and that's what we were up for. So and it was a mixed group, so we went into the gay bar. And a guy singled me out, who I'm sure is straight and not a repressed homosexual who's angry with other gays at all. And he glassed me. He hit me with a half a pint glass. He didn't break it and then shove it in my face, thankfully. He just took it and smashed it into the side of my eye. He headbutted me first and then smashed it into the side of my eye. For being gay. And when the police came to arrest him, he even shouted, he's a fucking faggot. I'm glad I did it. I'd do it again. And then he went to jail eventually. You know, so I am aware that this happens. I've seen it more than once with my own eyes. But it's not always like that's overt abuse. And often what happens is the thick end of the wedge, if you're gay, raised in this society, will be covert abuse. It's all the little niggles and digs, and the representation of how gays are supposed to act in the media is not. I would personally find it a bit annoying, and I would probably want to fight against that in the same way I find it annoying when I see depictions of a white heterosexual 30-something man, and I look at that and I think, fuck you, that's not me. How dare you like push me into that cultural stereotype? I'm not like that. Don't show every fucking white guy who's 35 to 38 years old. You know, it's frustrating to be told, this is who you are, little consumer. This is what you wish to consume and buy now. It's in the advertising. It's in, it's in the ideology, as Zizek would say. It's you walk in Starbucks and you literally buy not just a coffee, but a cup of ideology. And we are the goldfish swimming in this sea of in this water. Not even a sea. We don't have the freedom of the sea. We're in the goldfish bowl of ideology, but you don't see it. You're not aware of it. You just swim in it. It was there long before you were born. It's implicit in our language. It's implicit in everything we do. It's, anyway, I was about to go back into films, pull myself back. So if the abuse you experienced was covert, created the complex PTSD that caused those invisible wounds, you're going to seek an abuser later in life to sexually attach to, who reflects those invisible wounds that you experienced in childhood. So my friend, the reason why your last two boyfriends fit he watched my video on 20 signs of covert narcissism, and he was like, dude, it's like this guy hit 18 out of 20 of the things. He was exactly that. And it's like, you knew him. Well, the reason why that this guy fit the mold for covert narcissism is that I believe is because you were abused by a covert narcissist, but it wasn't an individual. It was a collective. It was a group. It was a society. It was a cultural norm that abused you, that denied you the freedom to be you. Oh, waffling a little bit there, bringing it back. Okay, so somebody wants me to talk about the Rachel Dolezal thing. Talking about swimming in a water of ideology, and so much that is important that informs what we do and how we think is not seen. Those of you who followed me from the beginning will know that I'm a big fan of Patrice O'Neill. He actually had a stand-up comedy show that was called The Elephant in the Room. But Patrice O'Neill's policy, his comedy, was to call out the elephants in the room all the time. The elephant in the room with this whole Rachel Dolezal situation is not about one silly woman who, yes, is probably personality disorder. And people have said, analyze that. So what is it? It's borderline? Is it, yes, she has a wafty sense of self. Yes, she will lie to get what she wants. Yes, she will jump on the bandwagon of other people's problems and other people's pain and other people's suffering to make it her suffering, which kind of would indicate covert. But who cares, man? That's not the big issue. The big issue right now, especially in America, a lot of people think I'm an American basher. I'm not. You guys don't realize a lot of Brits are very pro the American ideal and what America was supposed to be. Not all of us, it's ultra submissive to the idea of royalty and feudalism, especially in the North. You all watch Game of Thrones, but you don't realize that the American gentleman who wrote Game of Thrones understands English culture, British culture very well. The Northerners have always been rebellious against the South. The kings always lived in London. So I'm from Liverpool. I'm from the North. That accent that you hear in Game of Thrones, the men of the Night's Watch, the men of the Wall, winter is coming, nothing Jon Snow. That's my area. That's Lancashire. That's Yorkshire. That's up the road from us. And if you look in English history, they literally at one time came up and slaughtered. There was a genocide of the North for rebellion against the king in the South. So we're not all against America. I'm driveling on now. It's a fucking history lesson. Okay, so I'm not an American basher. I really am not. But y'all have hysteria when it comes to race. I went to America once when I was 21, and I flew in. And before I was allowed off the plane, I was handed a form on which I had to state what my race was. So I'm 21 years old. I just did a psychology degree. My dissertation was about the social constructs and race. And the fact that race is a completely fallacious notion. Race as a scientific term is gibberish. It's meaningless unless you're talking about plants. Sorry, guys. It doesn't mean anything. It's actually it has scientific validity when we are talking about plants, not humans. Why? Because there isn't enough difference between humans to say this one is different to this one significantly enough to say there's another race. If you don't believe me, Google how many races are there scientifically, and you won't get an answer because there isn't one. So I was appalled. I was told that I would not be let in by whatever you have in America, Homeland Security or whatever, if I would not state my race. And I thought that was the most disgusting, weird, bizarre, neurotic, hysterical thing to do. Who the fuck cares? Why didn't they just hand me a color chart and go, can you tell me how pinkish yellow you are on this fucking color chart? You know, it was ridiculous, but that happened. There's a hysteria to race in America, and it's being deliberately turned up. You know, the slow boiled frogs analogy. Well, that particular stove is being turned up right now. I'm not going to let this devolve into a discussion of conspiracy theory. This isn't the time or the place, but that is happening, and I predicted that happening 3 years ago. Others predicted it happening 3 years ago. You are being set up for a race war, and the start of this, the preparations for this, started a long time ago. A long time ago. They know they just have to push certain buttons to divide and conquer, and that's what's happening in America right now. This woman, she's just another patsy. She's just another fucking shell to keep you looking at the shell game, which is, you know, race war. It's gibberish. Don't give it emotion. Don't give it excessive attention. It's a shadow play. It's very clever puppetry that's going on. It's puppetry. She's a puppet. As far as I'm concerned, she's just another meat puppet. She's there to irritate and provoke, and to keep the question of race about black versus white, to polarize black and white. Nobody's talking about when this kind of thing comes up. It's like Asian people, Southeast Asian, all, you know, all the people of Asia, all, you know, all of them just disappear. So that, like, vast majority of the globe, yeah, they don't count, because it's black versus white. That's what they want. They've got this white girl who had the temerity to lie her way into a position of status and privilege, pretending that she was black. And beyond that, you know, yeah, I could give you various opinions about this and that, but that's the real issue for me, is that race war is being provoked in America, and I don't want to feed into this mind control game that's going on right now by saying, well, I think it's disgusting, or I think it's okay if she wants to be transracial, she identifies as black. Dudes and dudettes, it's not okay to lie. It's not okay to exploit. It's not okay to jump on somebody else's bandwagon. And even if you're black and you jump on the bandwagon of slavery, but your ancestors were not slaves, like your family's only been in America for 10 years, that's also not okay, you know, to me, in my opinion. Truth, objective truth, either matters or it doesn't. And I'm in the camp of saying it really matters. And it's hard enough to hold on to it as it is, even if you care about it. But when we start throwing objective truth out the window and just holding on to subjective opinion and knee-jerk reactions and the mental masturbation, the ego masturbation of emotion and subjectivity, well, I think she should be allowed to do it. Well, I think it's disgraceful. Well, it actually doesn't really matter. Doesn't matter. That's not what's important. What's important is the bigger game that's being played here. Obama is leaving soon. Okay, he's leaving soon. And there are things that are in place. There are little cogs that are turning right now that have a purpose, that might be there to keep your minds off other things that are there to distract you from the real issues that are going on. Good question. I hope I've answered it in a way that maybe it's a bit fresh. Maybe it has a different perspective, and that helps a little bit. Just going to find another couple of questions, and then I should probably wrap this up. Awkward pause. Someone tell a joke. Come on, sing a song. Okay. Oops. Okay, no questions on the Spartan Life Coach, just people talking about the thing working or not. Awkward silence. Okay. Can you discuss how to cut off contact with covert narcissists, particularly with the family? Yep. Okay. Okay, I'll stick with that one. There are a bunch of other questions there, but I'm aware that I don't want to waffle on for too long. I should probably wrap this up. I'm just tuning in. Can you discuss how to cut off contact with covert narcissists, particularly within the family? It's tough. I'm emotionally dumb, but my mother will put up a fight, which prevents me from pulling the plug. There was another email that I got earlier that was saying, you know, should I stick in my relationship with a covert narcissist and figure this out so that it never happens to me again, or should I leave? I can't, you know, I used to teach self-protection in terms of martial arts, and I spent on and off 10 years working nightclub security in Liverpool, Tenerife, London. I even did a 9-month stint in New Zealand. And it's very easy to get drawn into like specific scenarios, but I can't really tell you from the outside how to handle the specific scenario you're in or the particular fight you're going to be in until that happens. What informs your decisions of how to deal with that fight should be the moment to moment changing terrain that you see before you. And you should just try and work from certain key principles, which I'll give you in a second, and do something that is sensible. Do something that makes you safe. So if I say to you, hey, every time you get into a fight, you have to always use your right hand to punch the person in the jaw, and then you find yourself being attacked while you're on the top deck of a moving double-decker bus as it's going around a corner, all of a sudden by 3 people, and it's the middle of winter in London, and you all got thick jackets on, all of a sudden that advice kind of starts to suck, doesn't it? So if I say to you, always go no contact, even when it's in the family, and I create like an absolute rule, that's going to suck because there are certain situations where that won't work. If I say always work within the family and cooperate with the person you're in a relationship with, that's going to suck too, because you know, the damage that can be done by contact with a narcissist is terrible. If you're stuck with a narcissist, if you have shared custody with a narcissist, if you're financially, you're just stuck in a house for whatever reason with people who have narcissistic personality disorder, you're in for a rough ride. That's the truth. And you need to be very tough, and you need to be very tough and boundaried mentally. And the first person you need to be tough and boundaried with mentally is yourself. It's very important that you maintain a clear perception of the reality that's playing out. Now, I've just said to you, okay, troops, okay, martial arts student, you're about to get in a fight, you're about to go to war, keep a clear idea of what's going on. And as soon as you make contact with the enemy, their first attack is upon your ability to keep a clear perspective of what is going on. So I want to be like, you know, if I throw you into a game of rugby and I say, hold the ball, don't let anybody take the ball, and then all of a sudden 15 men are running at you, big burly men, to take that ball off you, you'd be like, geez, dude, that wasn't very good advice. That's what it's like. That's what it's like. The attack is on nothing less than your personal sovereignty and your sanity at any given moment. I will say this as well as a principle, any and all contact with a narcissist, whether they're covert or overt, indeed any cluster B, is an opportunity for exploitation that they will not waste because they cannot, because they're machines of exploitation. They can't resist an opportunity to hurt you, to exploit you, to use you. You can't do it. I was recently in an interaction with somebody, and through trying to help her, she became immediately abusive very quickly, even as my hand was still reaching out for the free gift that I was giving her in response to what she asked me for. She was like, please, can you do this for me? I was like, not only will I do that for you, I should do this as well. Take 2 of them. And before she'd even taken them from me, she was abusing me for it. And I was hurt. Spartan Life Coach was hurt. And afterwards, I was thinking about it, and I was talking about it, and I was like, you know, I really intuitively feel that this person has so little power in her life that any opportunity to be powerful in her twisted map of reality, to bully another, to demand something of another, to tell someone off, to, you know, castigate them, to scold them, if she gets even just a 3-second opportunity to do it, she has to do it. Now, That doesn't mean I have sympathy for her. It doesn't mean she's acted like any less of a dickhead. That was wrong. What she did was absolutely fucking wrong, and she's a dickhead for doing that. But I also have to say there's something a little bit sad about somebody who is condemned to follow a negative impulse. And that's just how they are, boys and girls. You know, this is the essence of what we're talking about. The complex PTSD you experienced in childhood are the result of narcissistic parents. Will manifest later in life when you attract more people just like them into your life and you feel comfortable interacting with them, and your unconscious mind is going, oh, maybe I couldn't fix mummy and daddy, maybe I can fix these. Or it might not have been your mum and dad. It might have been, in the case of the gentleman we were talking about earlier, you know, I couldn't make my peer group love me or respect me because I was gay. Maybe I can make this person love and respect me. Maybe I can bring out their covert narcissism and the covert abuse and you know, turn it into something else. I mentioned Patrice O'Neill before. He's very sadly missed. I'd love to hear what his take is on the situations like this Rachel Dolezal thing that's going on in America and all the other racially charged things that are going on. But he was very keen. He didn't use these words because he wasn't trained in psychology, but he was very keen on unearthing and uncovering sneaky abuse, covert abuse, covert racism. And he would always say, I don't mind like as much an over obnoxious in your face racist. So I don't care about that guy. I don't care about that girl. That's fine. He says, what I fucking care about is where I can't put my finger on it. I know there's something up. I know you're being something, but I can't put my finger on it and I can't call you out for it. That's what pisses me off. It's exactly the same with covert narcissistic abuse. So if you're in contact, what's my recommendation? My recommendation is that you understand the danger you're in as regards your sanity. I somehow ended up on a page of Amazon books before. One of them was about dealing with a narcissist, and it had great reviews. And just to be perverse and, you know, contradictory, I wanted to see what the worst reviews were. I was like, well, tell me what everybody's saying what's great. Let's hear what sucks about this book. And one of the 1-star reviews was saying, you know, you advised people how to stay in contact with a narcissist. How dare you? You know, and the metaphor that this person gave, that she gave, I thought was fantastic, was if you were advising people to stay in contact with a physically abusive person, would you recommend that they keep plasters around the house and little bags of ice around the house when that piece of shit punches you? So then why, obviously nobody would. So then why would you do that for when people are assaulting you mentally and emotionally? Why would you advise them to keep little, you know, it was something incredibly perverted, sorry, not perverted in the sexual sense, but in the Freudian, in the old psychoanalytic sense, when you have a drive and it gets turned back on itself, that's a perversion. There is something perverse and deeply sick about saying to somebody, hey, I'm going to teach you how to stroke your narcissist's ego and keep them from attacking you and keep them from beating the shit out of you. That's disgusting. That's like, isn't that like helping somebody, you know, I accept that you're going to torture me. So here's, you know, some pliers. You have dirty pliers. I have bought some new ones. Just go in the garage. You can use them. Are you going to rape me? Well, if you're going to rape me, you know, that what you're going to tie me up, that's not going to hold me. I'm quite strong, but I have this tape of it. It's disgusting, the idea that I'm not going to sit here and help people to remain in contact with a narcissist. I can't do it. It's sick. What I can do is help. I'm not going to help people to stay in contact with a narcissist. I ain't going to teach you any techniques for moderating the narcissist behavior or anything like that. I can teach you and help you in being the effects of being with a narcissist and to mediate them, to tone them down. There's a gentleman on YouTube whose channel I recommend. He talks about covert narcissism as well, which is quite a specialized topic within this topic, Ross Rosenberg. And he gives the advice of observe, don't absorb. It's great advice, but just like the advice I gave you before, the first thing they're going to try and do is cause you to absorb the strikes. They want you to experience pain. Richie's coming at you with another film reference in 3, 2, 1. Actually, it's from a really good book. Frank Herbert's Dune. People There was a whole like school, a whole little. The dude lived in Malaysia, and he must have studied some Silat because there's quite a lot of martial arts and martial arts theory in the book Dune. I really recommend it. Like if you like sci-fi, it's one of the best. And there's schools like these noble houses, much like you have in Game of Thrones, like House Atreides and House whatever. I can't remember the bad guy's house. It's very similar to what you see in Game of Thrones between the Starks and the Lannisters. One's like this stern northern, much more strict, much more sort of my words are leaving me now. Not so decadent, whatever the adjective is, the opposite of decadent and self-indulgent is. And the other one's this rich sort of Lannister style house. They're all a bit perverse. They're into incest and torture and blah, they're sick, drugs, the whole thing. And when they fight in this land, in this world, they don't fight with rapiers. They fight with knives. They consider that to be the most honorable way to fight. And they are allowed to fight at times with shields on that are electrical fields called the Holzman. I think it's been a long time, so I think it's called the Holzman field. And in order to get through this field, if you hit it hard, it rejects the strike, pushes it back. But if you hit it slowly, the Holzman field isn't set up for that. So it's for rejecting bullets, projectiles, fragments of explosions, and rapid attacks that go in. It immediately rejects them, but it is completely useless against the slow attack. So you have this cool scenario where you have these knife fighting martial arts schools, but they actually learn to fight against Holzman shields, that they get their opportunity, come inside, and then force themselves to slow so they can drive the poison blade in even deeper. That's a cool idea, isn't it? That's how it works. The poison blade that goes in slow, that goes in underneath the Holzman field, because if it comes in too hard and too fast and too direct, it bounces off. The most perfect form of abuse, if you want to abuse people, of course, is not overt. Like I get the example I gave of the two gulags. In one gulag, I torture you and I tell you I hate you, you filthy capitalist dog, or you filthy communist dog, or whatever the incorrect method is in that particular time and place. I torture you for it. And I say, I hate you. I hate you because you're a capitalist. I hate you because you're English. I hate you because you're blah, blah, blah. You have a blue t-shirt on. And now I'm going to punish you, you fuck. Take this. And I'm beat you with a rubber hose. In the other gulag, they're not going to tell you they hate you. They're going to beat you with the same rubber hose at the same time every day. But they'll say, this is for your own good, comrade. This is so that you can learn the joys of capitalism. This is so that you can learn the joys of communism, or whatever it happens to be. But it's reframed. It's the reframing of the abuse that causes the real damage, that causes the real pain, and that allows the poison blade to slide slowly through the Holzman field into your flesh. Once that poison is in you, you're in trouble. You're in a lot of trouble. So you will find this if you're in contact with the narcissist, be they overt or covert, and everybody, as far as I understand it at this point, everybody's on a spectrum of overt to covert, and tactics. A person could be a covert narcissist but use overt tactics at times, or an overt narcissist but use covert tactics at times, or they might swing in between. It's not as black and white as we would wish it to be. Our brains crave simplicity, and there is no simplicity here. There's just subtlety, complexity. And that covert abuse, in order to be effective, will not appear as abuse. It will appear as something else. It will be reframed as being something else, and that's what makes it really, really dangerous. So your experience of being with a narcissist is going to be up and down. In order to emotionally dysregulate you effectively, so that you go into submission, so that your brain gets traumatized and switches off, shell shock. Once they've shocked you and they've got you in this shocked, glazed over state, that's when all the hypnosis goes in. That's when they tell you all the things that they want you to believe when you're shocked. It's like they have a manual, because they all do it the same way, but they've all just figured it out from scratch. It's really weird. They've all been beamed down from Planet Narco, I'm sure. So your experience of being with a narcissist will be up and down. They will be cruel, and then they will be kind, which is the best way to torture someone, isn't it? I will come and I will say, comrade, sit with me. We don't want to do this to you. Please, you look terrible. Have some food. I brought you cigarettes. Good cop, bad cop. And then turn on you and start torturing you again. You will go into an infantilized state like that, praying and begging and hoping for the nice face, not the dark face, because there are two faces there, the abusive one and the nice one. That's what's going to drive you crazy. If I'm consistently a dick all the time and I hit you and I, like, I don't know, drink and I shout and I swear, at least your neurology can acclimatize to that awful overt level of abuse. It doesn't make it right. It doesn't make it less awful or less traumatizing, but at least you can acclimatize to that and then leave. I did a video years ago, like back in the Spartan Life Coach old days. If you go into the vault, if you go back and look at me in 2011, I think it is, or 12, I did a video on why do women get back with abusive men. That was originally from my self-defense YouTube channel, which some people don't even know about, which I ran for like 7 years and then got shut down, thanks to a certain fat conspiracy theorist on YouTube. And that it started out as, why do women get back with abusive men? And there wasn't any good information out there that I could find, but there was something called trauma bonding that I got from understanding cults. At that time, I didn't know about narcissistic abuse and I didn't know about covert narcissism. So I called it trauma bonding. And the trauma bonding way was to be nice, then to be evil, to be both the rescuer and the torturer. So in this children's myth, you are the wicked witch who captures children and shoves them in an oven, and you're the brave woodsman who saves those children in one. How can it be? Then the mind is forced into a state where it needs to split, and it creates a split reality. They can't be evil and good, can they? I want to believe, I'm invested in them being good, but I see them being evil. Let's not look at them being evil. Let's look at them being good. And slowly your whole sense of self and your whole grasp on reality starts to fragment and break, which is why I created the Covert Narcissism Unmasked course, was to help people deal with that split. It drives a wedge and splits your brain, splits your mind into your reality and your sense of what is up and down. And that course was designed to help you sort of deal with that and recover from that. But I'm not going to teach techniques for being in contact with narcissists that ever suggest that you should be trying to mediate their moods or placate them. And there are courses out there like that. It disgusts me. One of these ebooks that somebody sent me said, oh, treat your narcissistic spouse, your narcissistic partner like a child, and indulge them in their grandiose fantasies and their exploitative patterns. No. This is not the correct method. That's really sick. I would never recommend anybody do that, and I'd never jump on board with anyone who thought that was a good place to come from. Okay, cool. I guess I'm going to stop this broadcast. I will just quickly look on the YouTubes and see if there's any final questions there. Awkward silence again. Someone tell a joke. Come on. Hopefully on the next time I do this call, I'll be able to actually get people on and talk to them. I just don't know how to do that at this point. If you know how to do it, please tell me. Just write instructions. This is how we do it. Okay. Final question. Hello, my narcissist started ignoring our 4-year-old daughter, kind of giving her the silent treatment as well. We are currently separating. What motivates such behavior? Yeah, what motivates such behavior? It really, I joke about it, but it actually helps if you can see these people as being from another planet, you know, like reptilians from the planet Draco. And I jokingly call it planet Narco. The biggest mistake you can make is to try and superimpose what you would do, what you would feel, your moral landscape. You know, you might not be a particularly morally upright person per se, but if you have any morality whatsoever and you try and superimpose your morality onto someone from planet Narco, it ain't going to work. Like the reasons why he will be ignoring you and ignoring her, you know, you maybe should do some more research, particularly into the concept that is called the lack of empathy. There isn't normal human feeling there. There isn't normal attachment there. A father is supposed to biologically feel an attachment towards a child, but people who are suffering from this particular mental illness, this personality disorder, they don't feel that way. They don't have those emotions. They don't have those normal attachments. And I guess, you know, you maybe need, it's not a nice thing to hear, but you do need to hear it. This individual, if he truly is NPD, will see you and even his own daughter as pawns in a longer game to be used or not used. If he is totally ignoring you, it could be that at this moment in time, he doesn't have a use for you, but he may do in the future. And that use may be anything. I mean, use our imaginations. I don't know enough about the situation to say. Or he may be punishing you, and he may know that is distressing for you when he doesn't talk to his daughter, that it upsets you and tortures you, and that's why he's doing it. Did you tell him that you don't like it when he doesn't talk to his daughter? If you did, you handed him an instrument to torture, and now he's using it. In the world of Planet Narco, any and all information that you give to the narcissist can and will be used as ammunition against you at a later date. It's sick, it's unpleasant. I'm truly sorry that you're experiencing that. Get as much support as you can through this period, and try and acclimatize to the idea that he is not a normal human being. He doesn't feel and think the way you do, even though he knows how to pretend to. That's a rather dour note to finish on. Sorry about that, folks. I hope that that was useful, and I hope that in future Google Hangout thingies, we can actually get some people on and talk to them. Once I've figured out how to do that, then we shall do it. Okay, thanks very much for your time and your attention, and I look forward to speaking to you all again soon. Cheers.